that's pretty much it for part 2. You need to understand that each one of these I kind of mentioned it, just the volume is different in all of these. It's why you see the market move a lot in the New York session time frame, or you might see consolidated Asian session. It has different volume action in each one, and you need to just understand when it's more ideal for you to place your trades so you can have more of a push towards your ideas and whatnot, and why each one might have, like, okay, you might look for a breakout trade in London and New York session as opposed to just scalping for Asian session, looking for a really small entry. Or if you just want to understand that you might need to swing trade or hold your trade longer if you place it during Asian session, that's a good key to know, because it might take a while for it to hit up or move up to your take profit or your stop loss. So that's a good one to know. That's it for, let's say, part 2. Part 3, we're going to touch a little bit on the price action behavior, so I'll put that one down here as well. Change the color, make this one part 1, understanding sessions. So part 3 will be price action, just understanding like things like I mentioned, like those things like the breakouts and what you're going to be looking for in each session. So price, as I mentioned, does move differently in each of the sessions. So in part 3, you just need to understand the price action. In Asian session, you'll see, here you're going to see those things like those consolidations like I've been mentioning. You'll see some type of pullback potentially depending on how New York session formed, and then you'll see slower trend development. London session, you'll see those type of internal or initial moves or sweeps of liquidity. So you'll see initial, so like maybe a big push to the upside or downside. You'll see an initial move or sweep of liquidity, and this could just be sweeping the Asian session liquidity. And it's a lot of different nuances, but a lot of times London session, they say, can form like the high or the low of the day, because you might be sweeping that liquidity and then reverse to the upside in New York session. So that's just that's a nuance that kind of comes with some pairs. It happens sometimes it doesn't. It's just something to understand that London session can be the spike for an initial move. So you might just see the Asian session consolidate, then London will move up, then New York might reverse or just continue London session's momentum. So just kind of a nuance that comes with it. And then New York, as I just mentioned, it might reverse from London session, or it might extend it or fake out the momentum from London session, depending on definitely things like news and market open. Say MO for market open and market open liquidity. So that'll be it for part 3, just understanding what type of actual price action can happen in those different sessions. And that'll bring us on to part 4, as I kind of mentioned with the New York session price action. Fake outs with news, or mostly just news events on part 4. So part 4, this should just be news events. Make this one a different color as well. So part 4 with news events. So another reason your sessions will matter is because of news. So a lot of the high impact news, like the red folder things, you'll see that'll spike the market up crazy wicks or huge candles that aren't like any of the characteristics you've seen in previous structure. So these high impact news events, they typically drop during London or New York session. And that's really just because of the heavier or the bigger economic countries will say they typically have the higher impact news that can really move the market, like data like CPI or the Fed speaking or anything like that. NFP, those type of news events, those really big ones, they kind of dictate the market a lot. So those are reasons why those 2 sessions will move the market pretty heavily. So if you're trading things like, let's say, indices, or USD-based pairs, or we'll say Europe-based pairs, that could be EU or GBP pairs, New York session or London session will give you the best exposure for this. If you want to trade news, that is, you can do that like that. London session or New York session will give you the best exposure for this. So if you don't really want to be caught off guard by news, it's important to understand that it will happen in probably those sessions. You'll see crazy amounts of fake outs, and if you don't want to trade that, you can trade Asian sessions. There's nothing wrong with it. You just got to understand how the price volatility and the market will move differently than as opposed to those sessions. So if you don't want to trade the news or get impacted by news, you want to say consider doing Asian session, because it's just going to be lower impact moves that don't really have too much high movements like that. That'll be catch you off guard by news. You could be in a trade in New York session and it might just be a random news event that drops, and it could literally spike up and take you out of your position, or spike down or spike towards your take profit. It just kind of happens. You don't want those random volatility moments then consider trading Asian session, because news events will really drive the market some days, especially with NFP week. It will really drive the US markets and the European markets a lot. So if you don't want to be impacted by that, it's just important to know maybe you switch your trading time frame for a week or two, or you just understand what time the news is dropping. Maybe you don't want to trade New York session today. Maybe you trade London session one day because it's less news. It's important to understand those two are going to be the heavier news impacted sessions. And then touching back on that,